Hello, I'm Irina Baker, Spiritual Awareness Wealth Consciousness Mentor. Welcome to our mega video summit, Fear Busters. And I'm here with a fascinating woman. Her name is Cami Gildner, and she's an incredible professional. And I'm going to introduce her formally literally in a few seconds, but I want to say we have something common with her, which is love for horses. I am so fascinated with horses, and Cami is it seems to me, all about horses. So of course there is more to Cami as a professional and an interesting, fascinating person, but I just wanted to mention that I just love horses.
Thank you, Irina.
And I know that your story is coming up, and it will be a fascinating story. And because I've been in a situation like that, what you're going to say, with horses, that I've been a client like that, so I know what it feels like, how it usually happens. So it's so fascinating. I just needed to say that. All right, here is my official introduction. Cami Gildner is an inspirational speaker, mentor, and coach, helping extraordinary women courageously live out loud. That's brilliantly said, live out loud, because a lot of women don't have the voice, and we really have so much to say, and that's brilliant. She's a woods walker and sky gazer, a horse lover, which you already know, and a former corporate executive who found her own fire dancer journey by slowing down, tuning into nature, and discovering her life purpose. Cami helps executives, entrepreneurs, and truth seekers around the world to connect with their inner gifts and discover new meaning and new paths. Her clients step into intentional action fueled with vitality and courage. Beautiful words.
Thank you.
All right, and now it's time to be vulnerable and open up and see what will come up here. So tell us, Cami, about your story. Or your story.
So my story around fear was when I started my business several years ago. I jumped into it. The first year just took off. It was amazing how things were coming to me. I really felt like I was on the right track. It felt amazing. The second year, though, started to slow down. And what I realized was that I loved what I was doing so much that there was some fear that was starting to show up for me. In fact, I probably didn't even quite realize it was fear. I just knew that there was something that I was holding in my body, something that was telling me that, what if this doesn't work? This work that I love to do, having left the corporate world, having started my own business, I was helping people, I was making a difference in their lives. But when that flow of the cash flow started to slow down in that second year, I got worried. It was like, what if that doesn't happen? But I was a very positive person, right? So I was all about positive psychology. So I just kind of pushed all of that down. I was like, it's not about fear. I'm just going to keep staying positive. I'm going to keep moving on this pathway. And I ignored all that fear. I pretended it wasn't there.
Right. So people love saying, well, we have to be positive, which I am also for positive thinking,
yes.
Right? So we have to be positive, we have to move forward. And that's what usually a lot of people teach, right? That mindset is very important. Only with positive thinking you can go forward. But so let's go back to the story. You actually found out that all this positive thinking, positive attitude, and positive face, so to speak, right? The positive demeanor did not really help on the second year of business. So how did it show? Let's be in that story for a moment. How did it show? Did the client slow down the flow, or how exactly? How did you find yourself? What was it? How did it?
Certainly, the clients slowed down on that second year. I had some pretty big clients early in that first year, and then the pace of new clients coming in slowed. The cash flow certainly flowed right along with it. And when that happened, as this new business owner who, I came out of the corporate world where there had always been this steady paycheck, right? I'd had a great paying job in the corporate world. And so there was this tension that I felt around worry, just worry. What if it doesn't work? That was, probably my biggest question was, what if it doesn't work?
Did you feel that it was a spiral down when it started? Because you know how when something happens and we start worrying and then it continues, nothing changes. So you start going, I could describe it as like a roller coaster, but goes down. It's like a spiral taking you down, worse and worse and worse. And you feel more desperate. Did that happen to you too?
Well, I think what happens is that you start feeding that spiral. And my book my book Fire Dancers talks about the spiral journey of our life. And I think what happens is we start to feel these emotions. We start to feed that journey, that spiral. And if we're feeding it with a lot of negative feelings and emotions, it does definitely take us in a deeper downward spiral, unless we catch that and find a way to bring that back up.
Right. Okay, and so let's talk about fears that specifically sounded in your head or were around you. How was it? What fears did you hear?
Did I hear?
And did you hear? Because fears talk to us. That's what I know. And you can hear it in your head, some voices telling you, whatever that voice is, nasty voice, but you feel it in the body, but also you hear that exactly. And if you really listen to it, you can hear what it says, right?
Well, what's interesting, and I think at that place in my life, I don't know that I actually did hear it because I was so focused on staying, I need to put more positive affirmations out there, right? So anything that I might have felt in my body, anything that I might have been hearing in my head, I'd push that away at that stage in my life because I was like, this is about staying positive and this is about seeing this vision of where I'm going. But I wasn't making that space for it to come up. And so it wasn't until I really got that, where it came up for me, where I got clear about it was actually in an equine guided session that
okay, hold on, we're getting there. So I would, because so you did not know about those fears before, so let's talk about the divine, and then of course you can can tell us the fear, because I do want everybody who watches it knows that there are fears and they can identify with those fears and they can hear them and know. And you're making great point. I'm so glad you are a part of our summit telling the story, because how many people believe that by just positive thinking you can cover everything up and be fine. So really great point. So so let's talk about the divine. So how do you think the divine helped you in that moment? How did divine intervention happen?
Well, I do believe in the divine, just like you. And I believe that, the universe drops in what we need. And for us, when we are in the space where we start to feel stuck, and I had a friend reach out to me, and her name is Lynn, and she does, so I'm an equine guided coach in some of my work. I do equine guided retreats and work with my clients with horses. And
sessions.
Yes, and my friend Lynn also does. And she said to me, why don't we do a day of coaching each other? And I said, oh my gosh, that would be awesome, because I'm feeling really, really stuck right now, right? And so, the universe kind of opened up that door for me to have this session with her that day.
I want you to say, I feel positively stuck.
Exactly. Yes, exactly where I wanted to be, right? Yeah. So I showed up at her house that day, at her barn, and the interesting thing was the wind was blowing like 70 miles an hour that day. It was really a cold spring, windy day in Colorado. And we headed out to the barn, and her her horse's name, of all things, was her horse's name is Windy Day. So here's this windy day. The wind's blowing all over the place. I go into a round pen with this horse, Windy Day, and I don't know what I'm going to talk about. She's like, okay, so and so when you go into a round pen with a horse to do coaching, you're going in to think about and to tap into that deeper insights within on a question, on something that you want to be pondering, on something that you want to be, just letting it come up through you. And I stood there next to Windy Day. So we're standing there next to each other, and we're kind of leaning into the wind. The wind's just blowing at us. I'm bundled up in a jacket, and here's the wind blowing at us. And Lynn sits there, and she watches for a little while. And she's quite intuitive. She's very intuitive. And she says to me, she says, Cami, she says, what's going on? What's coming up for you? I said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I feel, I don't know what's supposed to come up for me today. So she sat there for another minute, and I stood there in the wind, leaning into the wind. She says, well, I just noticed that you are leaning into the wind. You and Windy Day are both standing beside each other, and you're just leaning into the wind. And I said, okay. She says, what might that mean? She says, what's coming up for me, she says, is I'm sensing some fear. Do you feel any fear about anything? And my whole initial reaction was, oh, no. I don't feel fear, because I don't want to claim that. I don't want fear, that negative energy in my life, right? But as soon as I said that, the tears came up. I was like, yes, I feel fear. I'm scared to death. I'm worried that this isn't going to work. I am worried that I will lose my house. I'm worried I will not be able to make the money that supports myself. And it was like, it was a big rush of information and a big rush of knowing that came up through me that I had no words for it or any concept of it prior to that day. It was in that moment, that magic of that moment, where all those emotions came up, and I was able to actually claim that I was fearful. So, putting that statement out there on that day was okay. And it like released so much through me. And so I went home that day, and I knew I needed to write. And what I wrote was, I was in the midst of writing a deck of inspirational cards. And I wrote my card that's called, this is the front side of the card, and it's called Looking into the Eyes of Fear. And what it talks about is how important it is to actually look into the eyes of fear, to get to become friends with that fear, get to know that fear, to identify it, and then it can flow through you versus staying stuck and in this sticky place, which is where I was before I did that. So it was brilliant. It was a brilliant moment.
Absolutely. And you are sharing this brilliantly. So I'm really happy about it, because I had a client at some point who was very happy, and she said, I'm happy, I'm never angry. And we were approaching the anger part. And so, of course, she was able to take off the mask, and she realized that she was absolutely very angry with the world.
Right.
Very angry. But on top of it, she was wearing the mask of happiness and positive attitude. She said, I'm the happiest person in the whole world. Well, it turned out she was the opposite. And she was able to claim it and acknowledge it and let go. And now she is a happy person. So yeah. People, if you believe that you are completely the happiest person in the world, but things are not working really well in your life, maybe it's a good time, right, Cami? It's a good time
absolutely.
To take off that mask and really acknowledge to yourself, is there anger? Is there fear? Is there something that is there that you are hiding from yourself?
Yeah, and I love your visionary of the mask that you put on, that mask of whatever we're trying to mask. It doesn't serve us ever. We've got to open up our heart and let that flow through us.
Right. Even though a raccoon is very cute, but it's a mask. You have to take it off. I always, when I see raccoon, I know, okay, what's the next mask I need to let go of?
So, I like that. I totally like
that. Yeah. Okay, and the next question, of course, oh, you know what? I still want to ask about the fears. When you acknowledge, I mean, I will not get off your back, so to speak. I won't let you slide. So when you acknowledge those fears, when you really opened up to ask, what was the fear? What did it say to you?
The fear was I wasn't going to be successful, right? The fear was that I was going to fail at something that I loved, and that I was going to have to go back to the corporate world and get a job. It was like, oh my God, I have finally found my purpose on what I'm supposed to be doing and delivering into the world. And what if I wasn't successful at it? That was the fear.
And also your background as a corporate executive, to me, that's a great message to people, because even if you are a great corporate executive with all the skills and abilities and talents that you already showed and, proved, right, when at the job, and obviously you could bring them back into your world and use the same talents and abilities, but fears still come up. No matter what level it was before, fears are still there. So the message is, no matter where you are, when you change, when you go into something unknown, like being an entrepreneur, fears come up. And
it never goes away. And I think you're spot on. I mean, it's like we get fears in different levels. And I think one of the most brilliant things somebody has said to me about fear is to learn to tolerate the emotion of fear, learn to tolerate being in the energy of fear, because it's going to always be there. Learn how to move through it is more important. And the more quickly you can acknowledge it, that it's there, and be in that fear and then let it move, the distance that you stay in that fear is shorter, versus, early on when I was learning the skill set, it took much longer. You would stay in that now. And so now you can catch it in a much more quick space and maneuver through it. So that's something that I am always helping my clients do, is know when it happens so that you can move through it in a much more quick way versus living in it for a long period of time.
That's right. That's right. I usually say to children, for example, when let's say they cry, they feel a feeling, and it's a lot of feelings there. And people say, don't cry, you're a big boy or a big girl. Yeah. And I say, you have to cry. The children have to cry, because when you cry, you feel the feelings and they move through you like a river through the whole body, and they go away. Right. If you don't cry, you put it aside, they're already there. They've been created. So they need to flow like a river to get out of your body. So acknowledgement, crying is acknowledgement. I am hurting. I'm feeling it. Yeah. Right. Okay. So what do you believe? Where does money come from?
Oh, I believe money is an energetic flow. I believe there is plenty in our world. There's an abundant source of money in our world, and we can open up to it, or we can shut ourselves off to it. And so the more we become, we acknowledge that it's energy, that it's a resource coming to us, the resource going to others, and let that river. So I'm going to just go right back to that river analogy you just used, because if you think of it's coming to me and then I need to hold it, or there's not enough and I need to be grasping at it, it's different energy than there's plenty here. We just all need to be opening ourselves up, doing the work we love, doing work that matters to other people, and that abundant flow starts to happen.
Right. And when we don't acknowledge our fears, we block it completely.
Totally.
Oh, how about, based on your experience, based on your own fears and everything else, what are the 3 tips or techniques you could offer our viewers how to handle fears when they arise?
Okay. I will, I'm going to start with the first one, right back with the horses and being in nature. Because I think when you can get around horses, or if you don't have an opportunity to go work with horses, like in an equine guided situation, then go do it. Go for a walk in nature and start to notice what's going on in your body. Start to notice where you might be holding things. Do you get a knot in your neck? Do you get, knots in your back? And if you just start to become aware of what's going on in your body, getting yourself out in nature, the magic of those two things coming together, you can start to see and name what that fear is. So you can, again, you're naming it much more quickly than versus sitting back on it and waiting too long and sitting in it too long. So that's one.
I wanted to add to that, or dress like a horse. And what I mean by that, I didn't even think, but I dress like a zebra. Well, I don't have anything looks like horse, so I dress like a zebra today. And I didn't realize it. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're talking about horses, and I'm very close, zebra.
Yeah, and I think that there's energy with the horses, energy with nature, that just puts us in a different place, that we let go. We're always in this constant pace of noise from people and technology and happenings, everything, going on around us. And when you get out in nature, or if you get with the horses, it slows down. You're slowing down to the pace of the horses, and you suddenly can hear your inner voice in a much bigger way. So it just opens up to space. It opens up to that kind of hearing your inner voice in a different way. Two, I would say, become friends with your fear. Fear is actually a good thing. If you walk through the fear and there's actually a life-threatening thing on the flip side of it, it might be a fear you need to listen to. But most of the time, it's not a life-threatening thing. Most of the time, that fear has to do with us stepping up into places or moving in directions that's new and different, and that moving into a new direction can bring up all this new fear. So if we learn to trust that this fear is there trying to protect, and we tell our fear, thank you. I understand you're trying to protect me, and I appreciate that, but I'm going to wrap love around my fear. I'm going to wrap empathy around my fear. And I'm going to say, okay, let's move through this. Let's go to this place that feels a little bit scary, this place that may not be our zone of comfort. But that's what I love to help my clients move through, is that place where they're like, ooh, I don't want to go there because I've never done that. That's where you want to help them move and stretch and grow. So becoming friends with your fear, I think, is the second one.
I just wanted to add that the bigger the fear, or rather the bigger the possible or potential quantum leap in your development or in some way, the bigger the fear will be, because it's big, it's uncomfortable, like you said, it's something new.
And I also agree that if it's something that you are put on this earth to do,
that's the biggest fear.
Exactly. You're like, oh my God, how can I own that space, right? So that's I think that's a really big one. Certainly is a big one. The third one, I would say, ties to really knowing who you are. So doing your work, so you know your strengths, your passions, your values, who you are at your very essence, and how you want to matter with those gifts. Because if you do that, if you get really clear about what your purpose is, there's a driving force that is coming from a deeper place inside of you that will help you move through that fear, step into that fear in a more intentional way, because you are so sure that is why you are here on this earth. This is, you feel this calling deep within inside of you that this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so there's a bigger drive than if you haven't done that work about who you are, what your strengths are, what your passions are, what really matters to you. you can give yourself, it's basically you give yourself this ticket to, oh, I don't need to go that space. I don't need to go into that scary space. So do that deep work so that you have strong clarity around what you're meant to do in this world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we do have a choice. Either we
Yes.
stay comfortable or we become uncomfortable and really move forward. So that's a choice, personal.
Yes, totally agree.
Very nice. These are great points because, we really strive. Those people who are watching our summit, I know you guys strive like we do. We're striving to be better, to grow spiritually, to grow through our fears. We don't want to hide from them. We want to acknowledge them. So that's why we're doing this work. So what's your gift to our audience that you would like to describe to us? Because there is a link underneath the video, so you can, when we're done talking, you can get the gift right away and use it. And I know it's very good. So please tell us about it.
Sure, Irina. So what I have for you guys is this wonderful quiz. And so it's a quiz. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of people that are moving through change. They're making big change in their life. And what I've discovered is that there's 4 different ways or 4 different phases or cycles that we go through when we're making big change in our life. And this quiz is going to help you identify what stage or what stage of that cycle of change you're in. So it will tell you whether you're in a clarity stage, whether you need to get more clarity about exactly what it is you want and where you're going, or if it's a fear stage, if fear is holding you back. It will tell you if you know exactly what you want to do, but you don't know how to get there. You don't know the steps to get there. So that's a planning phase. And then the 4th one is you know exactly what you want to do, but you're in this place of you're ready to step up and play a bigger game. And you've been doing it, it's been working, but this bigger game is calling to you, and you're an emerging expert in your field. And so you can go through this cycle of different change stages. And sometimes you can even be going through multiple stages at one time. But this quiz is going to tell you where you are, and it's also going to give you clues. It's going to give you tips on how you move through that stage so that you can get into the next stage of growth, of making this big change and really take some big, bold moves in this next year. So it's a great way to start off your year so that you're really starting to be clear about where you are, what you want to be making happen, and what you need to do to make it to get there into those in a big, bold way.
And it's a quiz.
Everybody
loves quizzes.
Yeah, and it doesn't take long. It will take you 2 minutes to do this quiz. It's not a long quiz, and it's going to give you so much rich information on the backside of it.
So you better get it and do it. I always say, not only read it, of course, you won't be able to just read it. You will have to do it, and then you'll get the answer, and you will know something else about yourself, which is always very good, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Cami. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to have you here and be dressed like a zebra to support your story and support your story and your knowledge. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Irina. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to watch all the different talks the interviews you're doing. I'm sure they're just fantastic.
I'm having so much interviewing people. I've learned myself so much, and it's just incredible. So I'm having the most fun because I'm doing it. So
yes,
and I hope everybody's having fun with that.
Well, thank you for putting it out into the world because it's important work.
It's fun as well. So work and fun, that's what we want.
Yes,
right?
That's right. That's right.
Let's bust our fears by turning our attention to the divine. Until we meet again, goodbye. Have a wonderful day.